when I started out, I got my mother to babysit. And I went down to the Hamilton County Courthouse and spent the day down there going through, it's called the Mortgagee Index. Now it's all computerized. A lot of that you can get online. If you have a county recorder that's online, you can actually look at this now from home. But I spent the whole day going through that old microfiche and came back with a major headache and neck ache. But I only got 6 names. But do you know, I almost threw them away. It's like, I'm not doing this, how can I get my mom to babysit all these hours? But I decided I'd work too hard for them. So I sent out letters to those 6 names. And my very first deal I got off of one of those 6 letters. And this is 30 years ago. I made $5,372. That's when I was babysitting for $1 an hour. You talk about life-changing. But it wasn't just the money, Jim. It was the fact that once I did it, I went, this works. I can do this. And I haven't stopped since,
All right, guys, here we go now. It is time to unlock more doors to deals. We're real estate investors here. We're real estate agents here, and we all have one thing in common. We believe that we can. We can live the life of our purpose. We can create financial freedom. We can build a better life for those that we love, and we can live the life of our dreams. I don't care if you're trying to do your first deal or your 500th this year. You can get to the next level, and we're here to help. Welcome to Doors to Deals. I'm your host and founder, Jim Manning. Today's episode can be found on doorstodeals.com/012, and it's all about the note buying niche, the fastest and easiest and safest way to make money in real estate. Donna Bauer is a good buddy of mine for the last couple of years, and she can be found on thenotebuyer.com, and she specializes in teaching people how to invest in real estate notes. One of the things that I love about real estate investing is the all sorts of ways that there are to do things. You can flip, you can do rentals, you can do wholesales, mobile homes, commercial buildings, and notes. Who would have thought it, right? So on and so forth. The cool thing, guys, is that they all work. It's just a matter of choosing a niche and dedicating the time to get really good at it. So exposing you to this real estate niche is a pleasure. And let's get into the interview, guys. Today, I have a really special guest. So Donna and I are in the same mastermind, Donna Bauer, and we've been buddies now for, I don't know, I think I've been in the group about 18 months now, or maybe 2 years, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, Donna and I, we really connected this past time, and we were talking so much so that we did a Zoom call, like a Zoom lunch a couple months ago, and we just kind of started talking notes. And I realized, I was like, holy cow, I am such I feel like a newbie, a beginner. I've been investing for 13 years. We've done thousands of deals as a team, and I feel like a newbie. This is something like brand new. So I was like, Donna, will you please come out to the group? We've got to share this with everybody, because this is a really neat thing. And so she really appreciates you coming out and everything like that. And as we get going, guys, feel free to ask any questions, anything like that. And let's kind of get cranking, because so Donna is just so you guys know, my kind of take on Donna is she's kind of like the note queen, and she's really well known on a national level. She's been speaking for a number of years and really helping people out with this niche for a number of years. So it's really, I feel really blessed to have somebody of Donna's caliber on this and being willing to kind of contribute to the group and kind of share your wisdom and your knowledge with us. So thank you, Donna, and maybe can you kind of introduce yourself and kind of go through maybe your background a little bit so people can get to know you?
I would be happy to, and thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here. So I have been doing notes for, I hate to admit it, but over 30 years. I started when I was really young. And it has been just a huge blessing to me and my family. When I started out, I was babysitting. I was babysitting 5 kids for $1 per kid. And so needless to say, things were pretty tight. And then I learned how to flip seller carryback notes. And it changed my life. It allowed me to be a stay-at-home mom. And that was the important thing, that I could be there. I have four boys, all grown now, obviously, but it allowed me to be at home. I wound up making more money than my friends who were working 60-hour weeks, had PhDs and the whole bit. And it just really changed my life. And so I then developed a home study course and started teaching people. I now buy notes all over the country. I have thousands of students who do the same thing. And it's just been really awesome. And the thing is, Jim, like you said, most people don't know about it. It's kind of the best kept secret in real estate.
Just said something really quick, the seller carryback to the something or other. So in layman's terms there. So what exactly is kind of like note investing to you?
Okay, a seller carryback is where someone owns their own house free and clear, and they go to sell it, and they decide they're going to be the bank. Okay, they instead of the borrower going out and getting a bank loan, they say, "Hey, you can pay me over the next 10 years." And so they start collecting payments. And then maybe a year or two into it, they decide they need their money, and they need their money now. And so what I will do is I will step in and I will buy that from them. And what is very cool is I can then flip it to somebody else and make money. And I don't even have to have my own cash to do it, which is the beauty of it.
So 30 years. So you started doing this when you were 5, right?
Exactly.
Over 30 years.
Exactly. I started young. I should first explain, though, Jim, what a note in a mortgage is. A note is the promise to pay. It says, I'll pay you $450,000 over the next 10 years. I'll pay you 10% interest, $4,000 a month, whatever it is. And then the mortgage, or if you're in a deed of trust, it would be a deed of trust. If you're in a deed of trust state, you would use a deed of trust. That provides security. So if the borrower does not pay on that note, it is the mortgage or the deed of trust that allows the lender to foreclose and take the property back. And so what we're looking at doing is buying the note and the mortgage. You wouldn't want to buy one without the other. And you can make a lot of money with notes. Now, there's all kinds of different techniques that you can do with mortgages, and we can talk about those later. But what has been near and dear to my heart, that is my primary business, is simply buying these seller carryback notes. And so I thought I would go through real quick an example of how that works. And then I can take some questions about it, and we can talk about it more at Jim. And we can also talk about some other things that you can do with notes. But this would be a basic example. Let's say you have Sam Seller, and he wants to sell his house. He owns it free and clear, and he puts it on the market for $600,000. Thankfully, he has a buddy that tells him, hey, you need to just carry the financing. You'll sell it a lot quicker. You'll get top dollar for it. You'll have a nice interest rate. So you should just put an ad on Craigslist, which is what Sam does. And so Bill Bauer calls him up immediately and goes and looks at the house, falls in love with it. And so Bill tells him, look, I just sold my own house, Sam. I'll give you $150,000 cash down payment. And then I'll pay you the remaining $450,000 over the next 10 years. I'll give you 10% interest. I'll pay you $4,000 a month. And at the end of 10 years, whatever I owe you at that point, I'll refinance and pay you off. And so this sounds like a great deal to Sam, needless to say. So they strike a deal. So we have Sam selling this $600,000 house to Bill Bauer. And in exchange, Bill gives Sam $150,000 in cash, plus he gives Sam a mortgage for $450,000, which is security against the house that he's buying. So if you look at this, Sam is elated because he got a really quick sale of his house. He's getting 10% interest, which is a great rate of return in today's market. And he gets some tax benefits because he's stretched his profit out over time. So overall, he's really excited because he has this very nice, safe investment. But let's say now 2 years go by and the $450,000 mortgage is paid down to just over $443,000. And then guess what happens? The coronavirus hits and all hell breaks loose. Sam's tourist-based business is shut down. And he's scrambling. And it's like he needs cash right now to take care of his family and his employees. And he doesn't know what he's going to do. And all of his money is tied up in Bill's mortgage. And so he's really regretting, why did I say Bill could pay me over 10 years? I need the money now. Man, this gal named Donna Dealer, she sent me a postcard a couple months ago. She offered to give me a free quote. Why in the world didn't I get that quote from her? And he's really regretting that he's now stuck with receiving 8 more years of payments when he needs $375,000 right now. Many, many people are in that boat. And actually, when the quarantine first hit, oh my gosh, I was flooded with calls because people who didn't want to sell back in last fall and in December, January, February, now all of a sudden they need money. And so I call it the note buyer's stimulus plan, how to make money from home while you're quarantined, just by doing notes. And I mean, this is what my students have been doing for the last couple of months, and it's been totally awesome. So let's say that Sam is looking for this $375,000. He tells me the whole scenario, and it sounds like a really good deal to me. So what happens is Sam sells the remaining payments to me. I buy the remaining $443,000 that Bill owes, okay? And in exchange, I give Sam the $375,000 that he's looking for. So he takes the money and runs. I mean, he's out of the picture now. So he's got his money. He's more than happy. He can take care of his business and his family, and everything is great with him. Is everything great with me? You better believe it, because I just bought a $443,000 asset, but I only paid $375,000 for it. So I built in $68,000 profit right up front. So worst case scenario, if I had to foreclose, I know I'm going to collect at least $68,000. And if I wind up with the property, I might sell it and make a whole lot more. But the point is that one of the cool things about doing these notes is that you actually build in your profit up front. And Jim, as a real estate investor, you know how important that is, because when you buy a property, you can do all the estimates that you want, but you really don't know, I need to take the walls out, I need to check the plumbing, I need to check the electric, and you make all of these plans, but the best laid plans of mice and men, right? And so sometimes you wind up not making as much as you had hoped if you're buying the real estate. But with notes, you know exactly the minimum amount that you're going to make. And if you happen to foreclose, you can actually make more. So in this particular scenario, I'm making 13.25% on my money. Now, you might be thinking, how did you get Bill to start paying 13.25? I didn't. Bill's position doesn't change at all. He keeps making the $4,000 a month payments. He's paying 10% interest. And so how am I making 13.25? Well, it's because with notes, there's 2 profit centers. You've got the 10% interest that Bill's paying, but I also built in a discount, and that's the second profit center. So I've built in that $68,000 of extra profit. And when you take into account the interest that the borrower's paying, plus the profit you've built in through a discount, that's what increases your rate of return. And so when you're buying these, it's not unusual right out of the gate. If you do your own marketing and you find people that are not shopping it around, Jim, a lot of times I can get right out of the gate a 25 or 30% return on my money. So if I had $375,000 here, I'd be making 13.25%. But a lot of times, shoot, the very first note that I bought it at like a 28% return. Now I flipped that to somebody else, but had I had my own money, I would have been making 28% on it.
If I can just pause you really quick.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I am following 100% of what she's talking about here. And this is also the second or third conversation we've had about this. If you guys, as she talks, like, hey, slow down or explain something a little bit more, just want to make sure that like leverage where I'm looking at the chat box, ask some questions as she goes. So because I've been exposed to this a couple of times, it's hard for me to know if this is something that you all are kind of getting right away, or if we need to kind of ask more questions. So if you could support us on that, ask away. If you have the questions, someone else probably does too. Okay. Okay. So go ahead, Donna.
Any questions so far?
Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? I guess they like the slides. Good old Allie. I love it, Allie. Do you have any kind of slides we could share with everybody?
I tell you what, I'll put together a handout for you. I don't share my PowerPoints, but I can put a handout together for you.
Okay.
And you could share that with them later if that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So please don't hesitate to ask questions. That I want to make sure that you understand the process. So what I've just shared with you is why people buy notes. And that is if you have money to invest. And I'm going to show you now. I didn't have any money. So my next step is going to be how to do it without your own cash. But right here, so far, if you had $375,000 to invest in this, you could buy this note from Sam at a discount, and you would be making over 13% on your money. And understand your $375,000 is nice, safe, and secure because it's secured by the $600,000 property. So a lot of people would hope that Bill quits paying because they'd love the opportunity that maybe if they had to foreclose, they might wind up with this really nice house.
Yeah.
And
okay, so we did get a question, Donna. So is it hard to find a buyer that has like the buyer for these lease purchases? I mean, in my experience so far, it's been a lot of, they are out there, they exist, and it is a lot of work you have to go through. Right now on one of the properties we're working on, we've had to go through over 100 inquiries, and we still haven't placed a buyer. So they're out there. You can do it, but it does take some work to get through a lot of people. What have you experienced? Yeah, it's
completely different with notes. That's why I love notes. You will have a whole lot more buyers than you will notes. And I don't mean that in a bad way. There are plenty of notes out there, but there are so many investors that want the passive income. It's completely different than owning a property. A lot of people wouldn't touch real estate because they don't want the proverbial tenants, trash, and toilets. And the beauty of investing in notes is that you have the security of the real estate, but you don't have any of the headaches that go with it. And in fact, many real estate investors aspire to be passive note investors. And those who really want to be passive from the get-go, they just start out with notes. I can't tell you, Jim, how many people I talk to who have been in real estate for 20 or 30 years, and they go, man, why didn't I know about buying notes when I first got started? So it's extremely easy to find investors. I normally have 2 or 3 investors that want the same note. Also, there are institutional buyers that you can send your note to. Personally, I prefer to deal with private investors. Institutions, they have a lot of red tape and everything, but they're still viable buyers. And so starting out, that would be a good way to go.
So really quick, if I can add into this, guys. So so with the tenant buyer and finding that tenant buyer was what I was actually talking about to put this initial deal together. Okay. And then Donna's actually talking about that home, like the process of, okay, now we put the deal together, that homeowner that has the equity, that's owner finance the portion of the deal, now wants to liquidate that. So it's almost like the initial deal has happened. And what I told you about the 100+ buyers that you have to filter through and all that, that's valid. And now she's talking about at the end of the day with the actual owner, that owner financed the deal, finding a buyer. We almost need like it's a different buyer. It's not the tenant buyer. It's
it's an investor.
It's an investor that wants to buy the note. Okay. So what you're saying is, so what we said there may feel like what we said there conflicted, but it really doesn't. We're actually talking about two separate things. So I just wanted to make sure I make you guys aware of that.
And as far as finding Bill buyer initially, the tenant buyer, actually, if you can, and many people do, simply put an ad on Craigslist for real. When you offer seller financing where people don't have to go to the bank and qualify for a bank loan, it's amazing. Your market, you have so many more potential buyers, because the fact is that a lot of people, they're great borrowers and they're going to pay you on time and they're perfectly qualified as far as their ability to pay, but many of them don't qualify to the bank standards. For example, maybe they weren't in the same line of work for more than 2 years, or they just switched jobs, that kind of thing. Well, just because they switched jobs, that doesn't mean that they can't pay you. And so when I evaluate a note, if I'm considering buying a note, whether I'm going to flip it to somebody or whether I'm going to buy it to hold for myself, I am going to look for, the first thing I look at is the collateral, because that's what determines if it is a safe deal or not. I mean, if it's some rundown junker property in a war zone, I don't want that note. So I want to make sure that it's a good, solid property in a good area. And that could still be a $50,000 property. It could be something in a blue collar area, but I don't want it to be in a war zone or, a high drug area. But I would say the notes that I buy, my sweet spot is between 50 and 150,000. But I also buy $500,000 notes. But the sweet spot, and I say the sweet spot because I find there are a lot more of those in that range from 50 to 150,000. So I'm going to look at the property and make sure it's a good property. And I want to know that there's equity in it. So the borrower has to have either put equity or put a down payment down when he bought it, which, Jim, a lot of people, tenant buyers, they don't have a large down payment. But the other thing they can do is they're amortizing that loan and paying it down over time. So between a halfway decent down payment and some seasoning, which is them making payments on the loan, that's what will give us some equity in the property. And the equity is what makes this a safe deal. So, for example, do you see that on this deal with Bill Buyer, I'm investing $375,000 in this note for the right to collect $443,000. Well, if he defaults, do you see that if worst case scenario, most likely I'm going to negotiate and get a deed in lieu of foreclosure. But let's say I have to go to the foreclose on him. And let's say nobody pays me off. Nobody bids the $443,000 that's owed to me. Then I wind up with the property. So do you see then I would have a $600,000 property to sell and recoup my $375,000 investment. And so indeed, it is the property that makes note buying such a safe investment. And the other thing that you can do, and this is beyond the scope of our call right here, but you can buy part of a note. So let's say you have, what if Bill had not put any money down and he wanted Sam to finance $600,000? That would be way too high of a loan to value for me. But I could just buy half of the note. Let's say I just buy $300,000 worth of that note. Now I've got a 50% loan to value. So there are a lot of creative things that you can do that will also help you to have a really nice, safe note. So when I'm evaluating, I'm going to look at the property. I am going to look at the payor. And a lot of people say, but wait a minute, Donna, right now, people, half of them are out of work. They don't know when they're going to get back. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. Well, I look at each individual borrower. And the fact is that most of them, I can tell you that all my notes, that not one of them has not paid me, not one. And if you've done your homework most of the time, you're going to find that to be true. I think it's more in the I don't want to categorize people, but if people are working like in restaurants or in places that have been shut down, but then they're getting unemployment, so they're still able to make their payment. But here's the deal. When this first happened, your first reaction is, oh no, what's going to happen to my rates of return? So I actually ran the numbers and I thought, what if I need to give them a 6-month moratorium on payments? What if they're out of a job? And I thought, I'll call them up and I'll tell them, hey, you don't have to make a payment to me for 6 months. And I'll just tack that on to the end of the note. Jim, that only affected my rate of return by 1/4 or 1/2%. So that's the beauty of doing these discounted notes. And especially when you're getting these high rates of return, it's very easy for you to actually step in and help the person making the payments and keep your investment going. And it's nice, safe, and sound. So that is not a problem. And then the third thing I look at the property, I look at the borrower, and I look at the note. And I determine, are they terms that I want? I want to make sure that that the note is well written, that it's enforceable, that I can foreclose if I had to, that kind of thing. So I have a complete evaluation process that I do. And if you follow my evaluation checklist, you will wind up with a very, very safe investment.
Okay, so real quick, so we've had a couple questions come through, Donna. Kenan has some questions on how to connect with note holders and note buyers. It seems like it's such a specific niche. I can imagine finding note buyers is easier, but how do you find the note holders? Hey there, if you're looking to get the ultimate edge for your real estate investing company, go to doorstodeals.com/invest for more information. Just so you know, a high percentage of the people that we interview on this podcast are actually already Three Doors Network members. And our network members have a lot of extra resources. They have access to an online training vault with over 3 years worth of content in it. They have access to vendor savings like our Home Depot discount that's literally saved thousands of dollars for members. And we have a weekly group coaching call, and we have a lot of other great things as well as part of the Three Doors Network. So make sure that you check it out on doorstodeals.com/invest. I can imagine finding note buyers is easier, but how do you find the note holders? So how are you kind of generating in this niche?
Okay. Actually, I have a complete marketing program. There are lots of ways to find them. The most popular way is to buy a list, and you can mail out postcards or letters. That's the easiest way because it's just a matter of it's a numbers thing. You send out letters or postcards and people call you up. So many people start with that. Networking by far will be your best source, but it takes time to build up a network. When I started out, I became very active in the Cincinnati RIA group. And so the second note I bought was from a RIA member, where she had multiple rental properties. She sold one with seller financing, and she had another property she wanted to buy. And so she wanted to sell that note to free up some cash to buy something else and move on to her next project. So you can definitely get note holders from any RIA meetings or real estate meetup groups, that kind of thing. And then There are many people that can refer deals to you. Mortgage brokers, CPAs, they know who's holding mortgages. Financial planners, builders, developers hold notes. There's lots of different people. Attorneys, divorce attorneys. Sometimes when you get a divorce, one spouse will take out a mortgage on the home, or carry back a mortgage on a home to secure the equity of their spouse. So probate attorneys, that's a really, really good source, because people pass on that are holding notes and they need to sell them to distribute the money to their heirs. So I have a whole marketing program. You can also do social marketing, LinkedIn, set up a LinkedIn profile. One of my students did that, brand new to note buying, and within a week she had like 10 different leads. One of them was a portfolio of 50 seller carryback notes that she found on LinkedIn. You can scrape Craigslist and find people who post notes to sell. And the neat thing is that you can buy notes all over the country. You're not limited to any geographical area. So you could scrape Craigslist, go all of the different major cities or wherever you want to go and look online, or you can post ads online. So there are many different ways. That's something I cover in my home study course in detail.
Yeah. So like, I'm assuming, so when you own or finance a deal, you have a lien on the property, which the title company records and becomes public knowledge. So, so some of these list providers, I'm sure they figured out a way to, kind of cultivate some lists and things like that, to be able to go after these people.
Exactly. When I first started out, we couldn't buy lists back then. Boy, I sound like a dinosaur, don't I? But well, what I did was
I don't want to tell you how old I was 30 years ago, Donna.
Okay. We won't talk about that. But when I started out, I got my mother to babysit, and I went down to the Hamilton County Courthouse and spent the day down there going through, it's called the Mortgagee Index. Now it's all computerized. A lot of that you can get online. If you have a county recorder that's online, you can actually look at this now from home. But I spent the whole day going through that old microfiche and came back with a major headache and neck ache. But I only got 6 names. But do you know, I almost threw them away. It's like, I'm not doing this. How can I get my mom to babysit all these hours? But I decided I'd work too hard for them. So I sent out letters to those 6 names. And my very first deal I got off of one of those 6 letters, and this is 30 years ago, I made $5,372. That's when I was babysitting for $1 an hour. You talk about life-changing. But it wasn't just the money, Jim. It was the fact that once I did it, I went, this works. I can do this. And I haven't stopped since, So it's just, you got to get one done so that you see that it works, it's viable. And I'm just sharing just one little aspect. In fact, we haven't even gotten to the part about flipping them, because I didn't have any money to invest. I flipped that first note to an investor. So maybe we should talk about that, Jim.
Yeah, so really quick, we have a couple more questions, and I do want to interject something as well. So this, by the way, has been a pleasure coming up to this, because I knew you're just going to shine, and I just have to kind of let you shine and get out of your way, But
I'm sorry if I talk too much.
No. I expected this, because I know, because we're buddies. I know you very well. So, so the great real estate is a win-win. Okay. And what I want to talk to you. So Donna said something a few minutes ago that I want to kind of circle back to, with one of the deals that she met a person at the RIA. They had another investment that they wanted to purchase. So she was able to get the profit, and for that end buyer to get their cash back was really important, was a huge win for them, because now they have an opportunity to go make money elsewhere. So it was a win for everybody around. And so this niche, like I kind of feel Donna getting really excited about, is just a great opportunity to put together win-win deals for everybody, right?
It really is. And this is something, if you are a wholesaler or a rehabber, a flipper, or even a landlord, this is something you really need to look at. Like, for example, landlords, when they're tired of dealing with the properties, they think, oh, I got to sell all the properties. No, no, no. What you do is you sell them to the tenants, even, and you carry back a note. And that note, I call seller carryback notes the landlord's pension plan, because a note is negotiable. So you could sell that property, carry back a note. Now you don't worry about taking care of it, no tenants. All you're doing is just going to sit back. I call it mailbox money, and you're going to collect a check each month. Um, but if you needed money, you could very quickly, it usually takes about 30 days, you could sell all or just part of that note and raise the cash you need. So instead of selling the house, taking the cash and putting it in a 1% CD, I don't even know what they make now, hardly anything, why not carry back a mortgage, continue to get 8, 10%, whatever you agree to, and then sell the note when you actually need the money. So this is a great plan for landlords. And then likewise, I have a gal up in Columbus who, she's a rehabber and she flips houses. And she did this deal. She had an underlying loan on it. And I showed her a great strategy for how she could sell it to someone else, carry back the note. We sold part of the note to pay off the underlying mortgage. Now, I know I just said a mouthful there, Jim, and I'm sorry if I confused anybody, but my point is that when you learn how to do notes, there's so many different creative things that you can do. And if you are a wholesaler or rehabber, you really want to get familiar with notes, because it will increase the number of deals that you can do, and it will also increase your profits.
That's fantastic. So we have one more question, and then let's get into flipping these things. So, is there a provision in place for home maintenance? Like, I may be misunderstanding, but it sounds like there would be a bit of a landlord-tenant relationship that's needed to protect an owner in case of default. Can you define like what that homework looks like?
Okay, that is an excellent question, and thank God it does not apply. Okay, there is no tenant landlord situation here. What happens is when Sam sold this house to Bill, Bill got the deed. Bill is the legal and equitable owner. Okay, he owns the property. But what he does is he gives Sam a mortgage. And think of it just like your bank has a mortgage on your house. Your bank doesn't own your house. Your bank, you wouldn't call your bank if your toilet overflowed. Your bank has nothing to do with the house unless you quit making payments. Okay? And that's the type of relationship that you have with the seller carrybacks. And that's why I like it. I mean, we also buy land contracts, but this is so much better than a land contract. And I probably shouldn't have said that, because there are some cases where you'd want to use a land contract. But all day long, I would prefer buying a mortgage over a land contract. And the reason is it's so clean, because Bill owns the house and I own the mortgage. Those are two totally separate positions. And it is a passive investment. I do not have to do anything with that house unless Bill fails to pay me. So hopefully that helps you to understand. It is definitely not a tenant-landlord relationship. That's one of the beauties.
Yeah, and like, so one thing I'd like to kind of add to as well to this is this is definitely a niche. So out of the thousands and thousands of transactions that happen every year that of people buying and selling properties, a very small percentage of those deals fit within this mold, and then another smaller percentage fit within that person, that owner financed it, wants to sell the note. That being said, though, this model is something that can be done across the nation, and the numbers don't have to be millions and millions of transactions for you to be able to build a business around this. In this case, this example that Donna has up on the screen, one deal is worth about $68,000 on it. So you can go after stuff across the nation, and you can make pretty darn good money just by getting a few deals a year. So.
And actually, you're right. And actually working, if you find someone who is a flipper or a rehabber, and you educate them on how much more money and how quicker they can sell the property, if you educate them on that, they'll keep bringing you business. It's ongoing business. I love to develop a relationship with somebody like that. Makes all the difference in the world. So.
Okay, so Ali pointed out that I should never talk about age. A good point, Ali. I guess that was from a few minutes ago. Good old Ali always.
I should not say it either, but when I say I have 30 years of experience, kind of gives it away.
This isn't the first time Donna and I have talked. We are buddies. So so let's go into the flipping side of this now. So
the point is here, we have this under contract, and Donna and me, I am going to buy this note. And if I had my own money, I would buy it for $375,000. And I would make this $68,000 discount plus the interest on the note, and I would be making 13.25% annual return. So this was a great deal for me if I had the money. But as I told you, I don't have the money. Now, this brings up another point. Why would people buy this if Bill's quarantined and he can't work? And I did briefly mention this. In all likelihood, he's going to qualify for unemployment, maybe a small business loan. And my experience has been that none of my borrowers missed a payment. But even if he was going to be out of work and unable to pay for 90 days, it would barely affect your rate of return. There's such a large spread in this that you can easily absorb that if you needed to. Okay, so what if you don't have your own cash? Well, very simple. You just want to flip the note. Now, we're talking about flipping a seller carryback. I'm going to throw something else in here, Jim, not to confuse everybody, but you can also flip non-performing notes, which is a totally different strategy. But for those of you who are in the non-performing space, I wanted you to know that what I'm about to show you, you could also do with non-performing notes. Those would be notes that are in default, and they're typically bank notes. Okay, so how's that going to work? So this slide is probably the most important slide that I'm going to show you. And it's important because it shows you exactly how you can make money with notes without any of your own cash, credit, or anything. And here's the deal. You're going to get this under contract where you can buy this note from Sam Seller. And we said, we got it under contract to buy for $375. And if you had your own money, you would be making 13.25% return on your money. So the secret is, if you want to flip this note, all you have to do is find an investor who wants a lower rate of return than what you're buying it at. So, like I said, you're at the local real estate investors meeting and you're talking to Irene investor, and she says, I'm so tired of dealing with landlords. I hate owning rental properties. I've had it. If I could make an 11 or 12% return, I would quit. I'd sell my properties and I would invest in notes. Well, is 11.5 less than 13.25? It sure is. And in fact, if she wanted an 11.5% return, that means that she would pay $410,000 for the note that you have under contract to buy for $375,000. You think we should sell it to her? If you want to make $35,000, that's exactly what you would do. So let's stop and just absorb this. I want to make sure everybody gets this. You're going to buy it from Sam for $375, and you're going to turn around and sell it to Irene for $410. And by the way, you might be wondering, okay, well, where do I get the $375 to begin with? There's actually two different ways that you can do that. You might be familiar with a simultaneous close, where you would close both of these transactions at the same time, only you're going to use Irene's $410,000. You're going to take $375,000 of her money and use that to pay Sam. Now, some people are concerned because you can't use a simultaneous close anymore if you're flipping a property. But the key is we're not flipping a property. We're flipping the financing. And Jim, I owned a title company for several years, and I had 3 different underwriters. They all gave their blessing to doing a simultaneous close if it involved a note. So I use that technique a lot of times. And maybe you've also assigned a real estate contract. You get a house under contract to sell. You want to wholesale it to somebody else. So you sell your contract to them for $5,000 or $10,000. You can also do the same thing with a note. So,
yeah. So if I can just kind of interject something here,
sure.
It's wholesaling for those of you that are familiar with wholesale.
Absolutely.
It's pretty similar. And like one of the things that I love, the longer I've been doing investing now for 13 plus years, and the thing that I love about business and real estate and investing is how many similarities there are in, like, you know, in the process. Like, this is exactly what wholesaling is, but it's a niche within wholesaling that we're just focused specifically on notes. And who would have ever thought, you know, before you get exposed to this, like, that you can wholesale notes, you know? It's
exactly.
but it's for those of you that are familiar with that process, it's the same thing. Lead generation, when she walked through the lead generation, very similar to what a wholesaler does, but you're lead generating to people that own the notes, not people that own the properties, right? So pretty similar. Now there's different nuances, different things you have to know as well. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of finer details that you need to master to be able to do this. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out, how fascinating that is.
And you are absolutely right. That is the way it works. There are a lot of similarities. So, but
okay, yeah.
I actually started out as a real estate investor. My brother and I bought a 5-unit building. We bought a couple single family homes. And for me, at the time I was married, and my husband was very anti-real estate because he was afraid he'd have to do the work on it. Needless to say, he loved when I switched to notes. And I never asked him to touch any of the properties, but it was the idea, we own these properties. If something goes wrong, he was afraid he'd have to go work on them. But when I switched, and my brother went off and he continued to be a log home builder and a landlord and everything, but I switched to notes because I did not want to deal with the properties. And so my toolbox consists of a calculator, a computer, telephone, that kind of thing. And for me, that works out much better. So this particular transaction, this is what I have done on a regular basis. This is my bread and butter for 30 years. And so what I do is I buy the seller carryback. And if I have my own cash available, and it's a good note that I want to hold, then I'm going to buy it and keep it. But many, many times my money is already invested. Well, why should I pass up a good deal when I could simply flip it to somebody else like Irene here and make $35,000? So depending on where you are on any given day of the week, if you have cash available, then you want to be Irene or Ivan investor. And then this would be a passive investment for you. On the other hand, if you're just starting out and you don't have any money to invest, then you want to be like me and be Donna Dealer. And you use other people's money, your investors' money, and basically you're going to focus on finding the notes, use my marketing system that I've already got set up. You find the note, you get it under contract, and then you simply flip it to an investor. It's very simple. It's buy low, sell high, and whatever the difference is, that's your profit. People think that notes are this really highfalutin, sophisticated, really difficult thing to do. This is as simple as it gets. It's like Jim said, it's wholesaling. Buy low, sell high, and whatever the difference is, that's your profit. And a transaction like this probably takes about 20 hours. to do. And the fact is, the larger the note, generally the larger the profit. I have one investor, Jim, on his first deal, his profit from the deal was $396,000. Can you imagine that for your first deal? And what it was, he found a note. It was on a commercial property. And everything I'm sharing here can all be done with commercial as well. But he found this note that he could buy for $2 million. Now, he did not have $2 million, but he flipped it to, I think, an institutional buyer. And the difference on the spread, just like here, instead of $35,000, he made $396,000. So it's pretty sweet. And then a lot of people, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just went, that's amazing.
I thought you were asking a question.
On a deal. No.
But some people think, oh, I'm not very good at numbers. This is not for me. I love to refer to my brother. My brother hates numbers. If he has any calculations to do, he calls me up. But he does these kind of deals all day long. And well, not all day long, but he does these kind of deals. And the thing is, you don't have to know how to use a calculator. I mean, if you're like me, I love a calculator. Like, I like to see, well, if I do it this way, how much will I make? Oh, maybe I'm doing it over here. And how much will I make there? And so if you love numbers, you'll love notes. But even if you don't love numbers, you will love notes. My brother Bill is a people person. And he certainly knows how to talk to Sam and say, Sam, what are you looking for in this note? Sam says $375,000. And so he knows how to pull out a contract, fill it out, and get Sam under contract to buy the note for $375,000. So then all he needs to do, well, in his case, he's going to call me and say, Donna, what can you give me for this? But if not me, call any experienced note buyer, an institutional buyer. You present what you have and say, hey, how much will you give me for this? They say, oh, we'll give you $410,000. And if you ask my brother, what's your rate of return? He would say, enough. He doesn't know what his rate of return is. He doesn't care. He knows he's taking $35,000 to the bank. So he's happy. And the truth is, his profit or his rate of return is infinite because he has no money invested. So this is really as easy as it gets in real estate, because you never deal with the property. You don't deal with the tenants. It's totally passive. You don't need your own cash. You don't even need good credit. You need to like working with people, be able to do the direct mail or any of the marketing programs, social media, whatever it is. You find the note, get it under contract, and sell it to an investor. And you can make great money. So then that's how you start out. But do you see that if you make $35,000 on this note, and then maybe you're like my student Phil, and you make $396,000 over there, $50,000 here, $10,000 there, it's not long before then you have money where you can move over to the passive investor spot, where you don't have to be actively looking for deals. You're simply putting your money into deals that other people have found, and you're just investing passively for a rate of return. But you start out by flipping in order to build up your money to become a passive investor. Have I blown everybody away, or do we have some questions?
I mean, I feel like you just dropped the mic. Like,
so sorry.
Well, that's incredible. So, ask away, guys, if you have any other questions. And I think you have if people want to get a hold of you, what's your website? You have like a website?
I do. I actually have a home study course. If I could just mention it briefly, it consists of 3 hard copy books and a lot of online videos, audios, the whole gambit. And you can check that out at thenotebuyer.com. Okay. And also, I just real quick wanted to mention, I have a 4-day virtual academy coming up September 24th through the 27th. So if you are serious about really wanting to learn notes, this would be a great opportunity for you. And you can find out the information all about the upcoming academy also at thenotebuyer.com. We're going to cover everything. This is going to be more of a hands-on training, not lecturing, but rather, I will evaluate notes in front of you so you can see how I evaluate them, how I come up with my pricing, and then we'll do breakout sessions and have you in a group start evaluating your own notes. So it's going to be a lot of fun and extremely informative. And I think between the academy and the home study course, man, you will be fully equipped to start doing notes right away. And I also include, as part of it, I have an easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching program where you can submit deals to me and I walk you through the deals. So you can find out more about that. Like I said, go to my website at thenotebuyer.com, or I should mention you can email me at donna@thenotebuyer.com, and I'd be happy to give you a call and we can talk more about it.
Well, I appreciate your time, Donna. Thank you so much for pouring some valuable information into the group. Really do appreciate you. You are such a valuable friend and colleague, and man, you're such a subject matter expert. So thanks for walking us through this. Looks like we do have one last question. Do you have any kind of messages that you're saying on the postcards? They're just kind of curious on kind of how you frame that.
It's very interesting that you would ask that. I have a very special technique that works very well. We don't say that we're buying notes. We simply send a postcard, a very friendly postcard that says, please call me regarding the mortgage you hold on 51 Andover Road, and sign your name and your phone number. They have no idea why they're calling you, but it prompts them to call, and then it gives you the opportunity to develop a rapport with them, let them know that you're interested in buying. And what happens is, even if they're not interested in selling right at that time, they will keep your postcard. And then if they ever do need cash, they will give you a call. Jim, I'd also like to mention, this is just one tiny aspect of note buying. There are so many other things that you can do. You can create notes, you can buy defaulted notes, and all of this you can do in a self-directed IRA. Notes is an absolutely fabulous way to build your self-directed IRA very quickly and very safely. And there are some techniques. I'm almost afraid to say this because people will think, if it sounds too good to be true, it must be. But one of the things that I share in my longer presentations is you can buy a note, and let's say you lock in this 13.25% return. You might be able to help Bill to refinance, and then he's going to pay you off. So instead of getting that $68,000 profit over the remaining 8 years, you could collect that money in a matter of a couple of months. Guess what that does to your 13.25% return? It goes through the roof. And, people think, oh, this must be some really tricky thing to do. Nope, it's just math. It's a fact that if you buy the note at a discount and it pays off early, it's not unusual for me to get 75, 85, 95% returns on my money.
Yeah. So if I can interject one last thing really quick, guys, is simple. Donna kind of said this over and over again, how simple this business is. That doesn't mean that it's a free lunch and that it's kind of easy, or like that there's not hustle involved. Like if you're going to wholesale a house, you need to hustle to make that deal happen. If you're going to flip a house, you need to hustle to make that deal happen. If you're going to note buy, you need to hustle to make that deal happen. But there's a lot of controlled risk in this area. If you're willing to do the work, there's a lot of financial upside as well. And it's simple doesn't mean you can just push a magic button and all of a sudden you made 30 grand. You have to work for that. You have to put the deal together. But it's a very doable thing. And Donna's helped thousands of people do it across the nation. So I really appreciate you, Donna. Thanks so much for coming out. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, looks like we're good to go. I don't see any other questions. So let's call it a day. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thank you.
Hey guys, just a reminder for this particular show, go to doorstodeals.com/012. Again, that's doorstodeals.com/012. We're going to have the YouTube video on there and some additional resources for you. So go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Take care till next time. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock Doors to Deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.